What do you see on the screen right now?
I'm seeing NCIP neighborhood, the screen share, and then I've got the whole picture and a little picture, the whole
Okay.
room in a little
And I unfortunately do have to be available by phone, so I'm going to ask Dennis as vice chair to lead this meeting.
Thank you, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this meeting. I'll be your captain tonight. Make staff fasten your seat belts and maybe some servants. Appreciate everybody's participation. And are you able to hear in the back a little bit better? Great.
No.
Turn, yeah, I think, move the microphone closer.
Is it better now? Okay, so when we talk tonight, we'll have to be new inches away from this microphone.
Vice Chair, if I may, we will have teleconference participation from a few of our NCIP committee members. So pursuant to the California Brown Act rules, we will need to ask them for just cause. So NCIP committee member Fields, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
And have you been able to hear the proceedings so far?
Yes.
Do you
Sounded
have
good.
do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, and then can you please give a just cause describing the situation in which you are attending a meeting remotely?
I had to be out of town on business.
Thank you. And is anyone over the age of 18 with you in the room?
Nope.
And can everyone clearly hear NCIP committee member Fields?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have community member Adam from Oak Grove. Can you hear me?
Yes,
And have you been able to hear the proceedings so far in this meeting?
I can hear you.
Okay, do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting? And committee member Adam, do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Excuse me, I can hear you.
Yes, do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
I didn't quite get what you said. Say that again, please.
Do you have the agenda for this meeting?
Not in front of, but I read it.
Okay, thank you. And then please give a brief description of the just cause for which you are attending the meeting remotely.
I will bring the agenda just now.
Okay, and we just need from you the reason for why you are attending the meeting remotely.
Say that again, please.
Can you please provide the reason why you are attending the meeting remotely?
Health reasons, please.
Due to caregiving of family, due to illness, due to business?
Health.
Thank you.
Health. I have an injury and I cannot really move around much.
Thank you. And is anyone over the age of 18 with you in the room?
No, I'm by myself.
All right, thank you. And can everyone hear NCIP committee member? Thank you. All right, and finally, NCIP committee member Jennings for Via Del Monte. Can you hear me?
Yes, I couldn't hear the other, I can't remember your name, who's taking over the session today.
Oh, for the vice chair, Dennis Duke.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, thank you. And do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes,
And can you please provide a brief description for the just clause of why you are attending the meeting remotely?
disabled health problems.
Thank you. And is anyone over the age of 18 with you in the room?
No,
Thank you. And is everyone able to clearly hear committee member Jennings? All right, thank you. And vice chair, that is all the committee members that are attending the conference room, this meeting remotely. Yes.
I think it's time for the chief to take it through. Who's on your program today?
Yes, I will first describe of how everyone can participate and comment on this meeting. Information on participating in this meeting and providing public comment, including remotely via Zoom or via telephone, is available on this meeting's agenda, which is online at isearchmonterey.org, and the agenda is available in the back as well for those that are attending in person. For remote commenters, you will be muted until it is your turn to speak. And for in-person attendees, as you can tell, we are using a new system. So please speak into the microphone, including for members of the public. We do have a microphone available. Just press the button at the top in order to make your sound available. In addition, please have any conversations to a minimal in order to not pull any additional sound from the room. We are trying to address these recent AV issues, so we appreciate your cooperation and we thank you for participating in your city government. Thank you. Yes, and now roll call. Aguilita Oaks. Alta Mesa.
Here.
Casanova Oak Knoll.
Here.
Deer Flats.
Here.
Del Monte Beach.
Here.
Thank you. Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande.
Here.
Downtown.
Here.
Fisherman Flats.
Here.
Glenwood.
Here.
Monterey Vista.
Here.
New Monterey.
Here.
Oak Grove.
Here.
Thank you. Old Town.
Here.
Skyline. And Villa Del Monte.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
So this is time for public comment on the items that's not on the agenda within the purview of NCIP. Does anybody wish to make any public comment? Do we have any public comment requests? Sorry, checking to see if you have anything online. Okay.
We have one person online.
And then 2 in person. Or 3 in person.
3 minutes.
3 minutes each.
Well, my name is Demetrius Castros. I live in the Skyline area of Monterey. I'm also a retired firefighter, worked for Monterey Fire Department for 26 years and also worked in the Bay Area for several years. I've been involved in emergency services for over 50 years. I currently help with the CERT program here in Monterey. As a firefighter, I think we all are well aware of the disaster that occurred in Southern California and the Palisades fire and so forth. As we consider tree management policy in Monterey, it's important that we take the old thinking and throw it out the window. We need to have new thinking. One of the phrases we always hear about in wildland protection in particular is having a defensible perimeter. We need to have a defensible perimeter around Monterey. We have an area along Holman Highway that would be an easy place to make a defensible perimeter because Skyline Drive, or excuse me, Scenic Drive in Pebble Beach parallels it with a green belt between them. If we thin that area dramatically, that will provide an enormous fire break between Monterey and Pebble Beach, which would allow us to at least have a good chance of stopping a fire from burning from one community into the other. Along Skyline Drive in Monterey, we have trees leaning so badly that the tops of the trees touch trees from on the other side of the street. This gives a perfect fire ladder for the fire to just go up one tree and come down the other. I'm not advocating clear cutting the forest, but common sense has to come in. We need to dramatically thin the forest in these areas. We need to provide fire breaks. In addition to the fire threat, we had a disaster on December 14th of last year in which a house in the Deer Flats area was completely destroyed when a tree came down and smashed it. If you looked at that tree the day before, the forester would have said it's perfectly healthy. The family was home when that happened. When I say destroyed, I mean destroyed a 3,000 square foot house. We need to take a look at it. We had a day last winter in Skyline where in one day, 8 trees came down across Skyline Drive. The Pebble Beach fire in 1987. I was in that fire. We had spot fires on the Monterey side of the Holman Highway. Spot fires are when the thermal factors of the fire and the wind bring embers and drop them down ahead of the main fire. We have spot fires burning in Monterey. We need to provide a dramatic change to allow homeowners to remove trees they feel are a threat. And we need to think in terms of a fire break around the city of Monterey and various streets where we can do that. Otherwise, we're wasting our time and money because it's not a question of it might happen here. It has happened here. We've even had a fatality on Skyline Drive when a tree came down and a woman came around the corner. And it took her life when she hit the tree. Thank you.
Next person?
Hi, I'm Martha Moreau from New Monterey. I'm Jamie Silvera. I live in.
And you can move it closer too.
Got it. And we are both members of the library. We're trustees of the library board. And we're actually just here to see how the process works because this past cycle, none of the library projects got funded. And as you know, the library belongs to everybody here. And a lot of the systems are falling apart. So we're working with the city to try to see what the city will do. But very often we get into this catch-22 where the city says, well, ask the NCIP. And the NCIP says, well, ask the city. So we're just here to see how this works. And we're going to work with the process and hopefully our library will be here for all of us for a long time. It's, the oldest library in California. And some of the systems are pretty old. Not this building in particular, but it was the first library, public library in California. Yes, and last time it was renovated, it was 1983. And if you ever use the bathrooms or try to breathe the air or anything, you can see that the systems are kind of falling apart. So we're looking forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.
For your comments. There was a third person? Or is the two of you were-
Vice Chair, I just had a comment from folks online. If you could speak into the mic and a little louder so they can hear you. Thank you.
And one online.
And can we hear from the person online now?
Oh, no, was he the third person?
He was not.
I'm interested in hearing if the committee has or to bring a speed drive like down the trash. This is not under the scope of the NCIP committee. However, that will be received as public comment in conversation. Establishing. Thus. Regions. City. Okay, thank you for that comment.
Now can we go to the?
Yeah, Dave, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I just wanted to note, I joined a minute late, so I'm here as the alternate for Deer Flats, and just want to be ready. I don't know if Dennis, if your microphone isn't working, but when you speak, sounds like you're getting picked up from across the room.
No,
No, that's online. That's the online one. That's in the room. So you have both of them. Yeah. So that's the round one is for online, and the stand microphone is for the speakers in the room. So you have to use both.
Louder than anything.
Yes.
Well,
All right.
he's still breaking up. Sorry.
How's it now?
Yeah, you're gonna better. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
You're gonna have to lean into it, Dennis.
Okay.
Vice Chair, thank you. So now we're ready for approval of minutes.
Are there any other public comments?
No, that was, no, we're closing public comment. Yes, and now approval of minutes.
Do you have anyone who wants to make a motion to approve the minutes, or are there any corrections to the minutes? Being no corrections to the minutes, taking a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll second.
You have to
We have a roll call vote. Rebecca?
Yes. Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Monte Grove, Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown, Fisherman's Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey,
Aye.
Oak Grove.
Hi.
Thank you. Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Yes, please.
and Villa Del Monte.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion approved.
Okay, moving on to the next section of these meetings agenda, information reports from staff. Make a report and staff.
There's no informational report this evening.
Agenda NCIP informational report. Moving right along, there's no informational reports from the NCIP. The next item is the public appearance for anything related to the review of current of project number NM 8 fire safety and fire reduction program return to NCIP for consideration by council. Let me hand it off to Rich.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, we will have a presentation and then we'll go to public comment. All right, questions from the committee, public comment, and then back to the committee.
Question.
Have to give it a second here to catch up. Okay. So MN 08 was returned by City Council to the NCIP committee for consideration, and you have various options. So we're going to go over the original presentation, which was, or I'm sorry, the original nomination, which was Monterey Vista neighborhood rated. It had content including Monterey Vista neighborhood is rated as a high risk by CAL FIRE. Insurance carriers are withdrawing from the local market. The age and density of Monterey pine trees was a concern, and the person requested a complete comprehensive fire safety analysis and ultimately to develop a multi-year hazard reduction program. City staff present that the city of Monterey, Carmel, and Pacific Grove actually completed that work through the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And we had the Wildfire Protection Plan identified a complex wildfire environment. It recommended community wildfire planning. Is there an issue?
Well, I was just going to say I talked with the representative and we're going to be withdrawing this project for this year. So
Okay.
if you shorten this segment, but feel free to continue.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess in light of that, we'll just move forward.
Well, let me just say, so he's withdrawing this program for this year since it's also a cutoff project and would probably say around a long time, this project will get discussed with Tice and will get resubmitted this fall in a more clear and more clear method, and will hopefully get a higher level of support so it can get done quicker. Anyway, that's all that is on, I think, for this.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. I just want to remind the committee members at the table, if you mute the round speakers, then it mutes it for everyone online. So they're all tied together. It's not just your microphone in front of you. So please don't mute those. And so just part of the presentation was to remind everyone that coming up next week, Thursday, February 27th, from 5 to 8:30 p.m. at the conference center, there will be a Wildfire Ready Monterey Town Hall presentation, and everyone is encouraged to attend. So we should still go to public comment?
We can.
Yeah, so at this point, we'll open this presentation up for public comment. We're opening it up for public comment for people online.
See one thing.
No, there's no comment online.
Can we move forward to the next item?
You could do committee comments on this item.
Anybody have any comments on this item that's been prompted?
Question.
I just had a question and it really relates to what's on the screen there, the wildfire ready Monterey. I will be out of town. Do you know if that's going to be available online?
I have spoken with the group that's hosting it, and it will not be made available online, live. It will be recorded and then
Okay.
provided as a broadcast to view at a later time. But for live viewing, it will not be available.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to item 4 of the agenda, review of proposed scope. Project scope for the, or as a project scope for the recreation trail bike station. Potential related tools.
Yes.
See that for presentation. Okay, you're in.
This is the second week. Well, we discussed this 2 weeks ago, and it was brought back to this meeting tonight with the hopes that we get some clarification from the Casanova Oak Knoll representative. So I'll pass it off.
I emailed the submitter and he had relayed the occurrences that have happened to having me contact him again. I asked him 2 questions, basically, what his opinions or thoughts were on just the bike stand with no tools, as well as if he had any issues or concerns about the proposed locations. He had no issues or concerns or opinions about the locations. However, he did express that he thought having an elevated stand with no tools attached would not be beneficial. He said he'd rather see a standalone bike pump than a repair stand with no tools. However, his preference is that the bike pump and the tools be associated with the stand. So he really sees no purpose in just having the stand alone. He did ask the question if there was a plan to add tools at a later time for the second location. So I told him at that time, no tools were being proposed at either location. And he did come up with an idea that he wanted me to express to you, to the committee, that he would like to propose that one station consisting of a bike stand, bike pump, and repair tools be installed, then evaluated at a later date to determine whether there's been any theft or vandalism to that one before proceeding on to the installation of the second one. So I guess in a way, he's kind of revising his project proposal for one complete bike repair station with tools and a bike pump to be installed and then reevaluated later to see if there are concerns that Parks Department had about the theft or vandalism of a bike repair station, if that would occur before proceeding on to the next.
That's good feedback. Is there any clarifying questions from the NCIP committee relative to that additional information? Go.
If we put tools there with the bike repair stations, who replaces when they're vandalized? When the tools get taken and broken? Does NCIP do it? Does the city of Monterey do it? Do we have from the bike company? Just some thought.
Any other questions, Scott?
Excuse me, my question is actually for the staff, and that is, if we were to go down the road of having one complete thing done, and then delayed the second one for an evaluation period, how much can you estimate it's not gonna be just half the cost, you know, there's gonna be, I'm just curious, like, how much more money might we incur by doing one and then waiting, or is there no extra expense?
Well, I would say the expense is, for lack of a better word, marginal. The equipment itself is the main expense. City staff would install the equipment. It looks like it has, several bolts that would be anchored into the concrete. And I think from my memory, looking on the website, these items run roughly 7 to 10,000 each, depending on, various options. So two could be, in that $14,000 range.
But is there a way, I mean, I don't know what's available, but I think about, the parking meters, is there a way to have a setup where you have to insert a credit card to open up a lockbox to get the tools of some kind of situation like that? I mean, I don't know if it is, but that might be a thought to mitigate it a little bit. And that way, if something is missing, you have these credit card information. And you can have a warning on there that if something is missing, then we know.
I'm not currently familiar with that option, but I can do some research and find out.
Scott's question about the cost. So he said it could range from 7 to 10,000. So with just the standalone, be like
No, the standalone would be less, but what you're talking about, right? With the setup, if you look into the agenda packet, right, with the pump tools, right? If you had it fully outfitted, so to speak, yeah, it would be in that price range.
So my question has to do with the scope of the project, because with the submitter's comments, it sounds like it's now a pilot study as opposed to just putting in the bike stands. So would this be something that the submitter would have to resubmit, since it's a little bit different than
I mean, to me, it would seem like it's a modification of the original. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think we could proceed, but that's up to the committee on how the committee would vote.
Is there any other clarifying questions? Let's move to public comment. And we're having public comments on this issue.
They're none online.
Chair members of the committee, my name is Rick Hoyer, resident of Monterey. And I'm here to speak on this, but to me, it's kind of either you put it with the tools or don't do it at all. To me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, I'm not a bike rider, so maybe that would be a big help if you needed work, but to me, it's one or the other. So if you're not comfortable with what's going to happen with the tools, don't do the project. Otherwise, yeah, they keep going in circles on it. To me, that makes no sense by itself.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments? So public comment is now closed. So bring it back to the committee for discussion. Nothing else.
I'm just getting a text online that people online cannot hear their reps speak, so I don't know whether these microphones are close enough. They can hear you, Reggie, and I can hear Dennis now, but still have a hard time hearing other reps. So if you can move the other mics closer, it might work better for the on ones.
So we're working on a new system, so always has its kinks.
So just
Any other comments, discussion on this item?
sounds like we need a motion.
I make a motion to accept the modified single with tools. I heard recently from somebody local that has seen one of these with tools and they seem to be staying with it. So I think I'll take that outside reference and going with the test makes sense. So the motion is to do one both and see how it works.
Oh, Chair or Vice Chair, hold on. Tammy Jennings has raised her
Thank
hand.
you. I'm sorry, I couldn't speak before because I was muted. I just wanted to say, I thought that the suggestion of the box with the tools in it and the credit card was a very good idea. I'm done.
So Vice Chair, we still have your motion, and so now we are looking for a second to that motion, or you can make another motion for a different action to take.
I appreciate the idea of putting a lockbox on it with a credit card that will drastically increase the cost. And I would rather see one unit go through with the tools and see what happens with it. And the submitter could submit future requests through NCIP to get additional stations, if that makes sense.
Committee member Fields has her hand raised.
I'd like to second the motion and then we can go to further discussion if necessary, but I think it's a good motion.
Discussion on the motion.
Yes, so now roll call, Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova, Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats, Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown, Fisherman's Flats, Glenwood, Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey,
Aye.
Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Aye.
and Villa Del Monte. Villa Del Monte. Villa Del Monte, do you have a response towards the motion?
Tammy, oh, she's muted.
I was muted, sorry, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 5. Recommendation for city council appropriation, additional funding for neighborhood and community improvement program, ending balance for forest management and fuel reduction.
Okay, give me 1 second to pull up the presentation. Okay, forest management and fuel reduction presentation for this evening. So in the agenda packet for tonight, the forestry division has submitted a request for additional funding due to change in the NCIP calendar. The forest management and fuel reduction project supports continued management of the city's forest and open space to minimize wildfire risk and encourage good forest health. Active projects support fuel reduction, removal and pruning of trees, and proactive forest management. City staff recommend that you recommend this project to the city council to appropriate funds for forest management and fuel reduction project NCP 2501. For your reference, earlier this year, well, last year, August 2024, City Council appropriated $1 million. And at this time, there's currently $271,595, or they've spent approximately 3/4 of the funding to date, or it's been appropriated towards contracts. And they're requesting an additional 800,000 plus a 200,000 contingency for a total of $1 million. And there is sufficient funding in the ending balance account. Right now, there's $1,371,074. So that is the presentation.
The gentleman that spoke first about changing how, all of this is managed, is this part of that plan, or is this something totally separate?
So this would continue our current practice here in the city. It would provide resources to allow the forestry and the fire department along, to work in tandem with CAL FIRE and other, I think Green Cadre is another one of the volunteer organizations.
Recording in progress.
Does this,
And Karen Larson, Parks and Rec, if I don't know Karen had anything to add, but that is what they continue to work in that as well.
it's included in this?
Yeah, and that is included in this as well, yes.
Questions?
Yes, so would this have to also go back to city council? If we approve it, this would also have to go back to city council.
So, right, technically, the NCIP committee would recommend the project and funding to city council, then city council would appropriate the funds. So yes,
Would be a sort of standalone process, or would it?
this would be standalone, yes. This one project specifically.
Because the way the calendar works out, this was brought on the agenda last meeting. So it's considered to get funding and continue work rather than have a major break in work because of the change in the schedule.
Thank you, Chair. So this is consistent with practices that we've had. So for example, let's say that there's a project and there's not enough funding. NCIP committee can make a motion to refer it to city council for approval of additional funding. So this is something that we generally do if projects are running low on funds. And because of the timeline and the schedule change, we heard from the community that they wanted to put more money on this project.
Comments, any other clarifying questions?
This money has nothing to do with this year's budget, correct? This is money remaining from last year.
If your question is regarding the ending balance amount, the answer is yes, that would be funds that are in the ending balance from last year and prior years.
Okay.
Hearing no more clarifying questions, any comments from the public?
Members of the committee, I'm Rick Ware. It is and it isn't like things you've done before. This isn't a case of a project that had a cost overrun and needed extra funds to be finished. This is doubling the scope of an original project. Don't get me wrong, I think we need to be spending money on clearing the forest. But I've got a bit of a problem coming in mid-cycle and doubling the amount. Also, that 1.3 million ending balance is also what would go to fund cutoff projects. So the question is, what is not going to be funded as a cutoff project if you do this? And I haven't seen any information on that. And to the speaker online, one of the questions was, yes, it's this year, but ending balance goes into the pot for the next year.
So basically, what you're doing in effect is saying you want to do next year another $1 million project, you're just doing it early. Because that's what this is. Now, whether you choose to do that, you should make very clear that this is not setting a precedent. Because again, this is doubling the scope. It's not an overrun. So, yeah, it's up to you all to make a decision, but it's a very slippery slope when you start doing changes of this magnitude to projects after they've been approved at a certain amount. Thank you.
And there's one speaker online. Speaker ending in 902, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nina Beatty. I wanted also to have commented on item number 3, but I'm requesting that the committee not do further funding at this time. The Los Angeles fire showed the role of wind in fire. And trees, plants, and vegetation slow and block wind and also create moisture zones. But the CAL FIRE work and Green Cadre forest management fuel reduction work current practices are increasing wind and increasing wildfire risk to Monterey. They're removing the lower limbs of trees, they're thinning forests, and then removing bushes and plants in forested areas. And this is not only drying out the forest, but it's creating openings and tunnels where none existed before. And that allows winds to flow in and through and swirl and accelerate up and down hillsides via Venturi effect. And it allows embers to be carried from other fires, as well as fanning sparks that were just going to go out into raging fires instead of being blocked. I was traveling up Highway 68 from Pacific Grove and saw an example of some of the recent work. And now, instead of being really hemmed in by much more dense forests, now there's open spaces and there's clear spaces under the trees, and the wind can come through. And instead of a fire being confined to the roadway or fires alongside the roadway being stopped there, now the wind from the ocean can come up through and push these fires willy-nilly everywhere up and down the canyons. The current practices that CAL FIRE is doing are based on U.S. Forest Service management policies for commercial tree and vegetation harvest, benefiting the timber industry, the biochar, and the wood pellet industry. That's a completely different goal. And so I'm very alarmed that the same philosophy has been imported into this. Trees are not fuel and vegetation is not fuel. We need to create more lush forests that will actually create greater moisture zones to protect our homes and our businesses, and look at other issues such as metal roofs on buildings, fireproof materials. I've spoken to the NCIP committee in the past about utility smart meters, which have lithium ion batteries, which, as you know, are very flammable from our recent Moss Landing and last night fire breaking out. And I urge everyone to opt out of these because they have significant electrical and fire hazards, including thermal runaway, including very susceptible to surges and overvoltage. Also, in-home lithium ion battery storage as a fire hazard in our area. And there's other things that can be done to fireproof homes and create forests that are actually protecting us instead of stripping them and creating runways for wind. And we just don't want an LA situation here. And by reducing our forests, by turning them into skeletons, we've said, come on, wind, let's have a fire. And so I really think this was not, these plans were based on antiquated beliefs that are not scientifically bona fide. And just because someone comes from CAL FIRE from the state doesn't mean that we should be automatically listening to them. We should evaluate these plans and make sure that they make sense. And the impact to our homes and our businesses and our community, it needs that. So thank you.
We're on time. Okay, no more public comments, and open it up for the committee to review. I've been saying, looking for open hands on who wants to comment. I see the past practices to go by person. Do you want to go by person, or can we do open? I'm going with open.
I see this also a little bit as a slippery slope. I mean, I do by all means, we need to take care of our forest. But I see it as a little slippery slope. We normally, once a year, we vote in our projects that we prioritize. By taking a project like this out of line, we're prioritizing a project that really gets not, it's a project of one at this point, and we're pulling. So it's a kind of a precedent that I think is, we have to be very cognizant of it. That was not something we want to repeat. It's not something we want to get into. We want to normally prioritize every year our projects and see where money we have is most advantageously spent. And by pulling something like this ahead, it's very understandable that we need to take care of our trees, but it's a dangerous precedent. Also, I think the request for a full million kind of takes advantage of what our bottom line is. We normally fund it, up to $1 million per year. We're looking now at a half-year delay in our thing. Maybe 500,000 is more appropriate to go kind of along with our line rather than what our ending balance is at this point. So that's it's kind of it's up to the committee, but that's kind of my concern about this issue here.
Any other committee comments? Sir. Scott.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. However, committee member Purdy, we have already passed the point of roll call, in which you were not present.
Parker, I was present. I sent you an email during that time, and I've been online since the start. It was extremely frustrating not to get called on. I understand that technology kind of gets in the way sometimes, but I was just raising my hand to see if I could still participate, given that I was actually here at the start of the meeting. So.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. We can take your comments as a member of the NCIP committee. Just to clarify, do you have any comments regarding this agenda item?
I prefer to kind of gather my thoughts real quick, but I'm just curious if you could, am I able to participate as a committee member? Or?
Yes, that's fine.
You ask questions.
Yes, I just need to ask the questions from the beginning regarding Jeff's clause. Do you have a copy of the agenda with you for this meeting?
I do, yes.
And then could you please provide a brief description of why you are attending this meeting remotely?
I needed to be home to care for my daughter this evening. So.
Thank you. And then is there anyone else that's over the age of 18 with you in the room?
No.
All right, thank you. And can everyone clearly hear NCIP committee member Purdy? All right, thank you. And thank you for speaking up on that.
And committee member Fields has her hand raised.
All right, so there are aspects about working on the forest that have timing, importance in timing. There's times of year when you can do stuff and times when you can't. So having funding available to do that work makes sense. It's right that we can look at this as a change to it, or additional funding on an existing one. We absolutely could not approve this if it was a brand new project. So we have that protecting us from having more of this coming through, because this is a precedent we wouldn't want to attempt. And then the last point I would say is that it is a lot of money. It isn't the amount that you would ask for if you were asking for additional funding on an existing one. But I think it's up to us to decide if it's okay to spend that now, and just be aware that we should not see this project come back again in the next rotation in our June to September cycle.
Any other comments from any members before?
So I would agree. I think we want to be mindful of setting any precedents. However, we are in a unique situation where we are changing this normal schedule. I would agree with comments from Jamie that I would consider this to kind of take the place of any new project submission as it relates to this. So by funding it now, I would assume that we're not going to put in another project to fund it again because it's being funded now. And so I do think that we have to keep in mind that we are changing the schedule, we are changing when things normally happen. And that is something that's unique right now. And hopefully isn't something that's going to be an ongoing issue in the future. So it is a unique situation, and I would be in support of this.
Scott?
Good evening. My comments, I really do respect the lady who spoke online about the new fresh perspective and the different look at things. 23 years in the military, it was always a red flag when somebody said, well, when I asked, why are we doing it this way? And I said, well, that's been, it's the way we've always done it in the past, you know? That being said, the timing and the urgency and I think overall we're behind perhaps where we should be as a community. I'm overall in support of it. I do like the $500,000 idea. I'd like to maybe kick that around some more amongst the committee. But I also I do think that if the speaker's comments are warranted, then we should not we, but as a community, we should embrace open ideas and also perhaps hear from CAL FIRE and maybe get a little bit of clarification as to why their strategy is that way.
And Councilmember Tammy Jennings has her hand raised.
I just wanted to make sure that if we do approve this, that $1 million, I wasn't under the impression that if we use this money, then we wouldn't have money for the like the underpass project that we're going to be talking about later. Is that true? If we approve this,
So no, there is sufficient funds. So there's roughly $720,000 currently in the contingency project account, and then larger in the neighborhood improvement fund. There's roughly $3.4 million that's not included in either one of those accounts. So in total, right now, as we speak, there's $5+ million sitting in the neighborhood improvement fund.
okay.
To clarify, because Jamie, you said that in the next cycle, if this type of project comes up, we won't fund it. So does that mean that any fire mitigation project will be off the books? I just wanted to make sure that if a different organization puts in fire mitigation, we would consider it, but not this particular one.
We are subject to getting multiple applications and we must consider all of those applications. We could get them from various different places. So that doesn't say that it can't be on the agenda because we review all the submissions from the public. So it could come back. I'm not certain that we're going to approve $1 million. Are there any other comments about this? The time for a motion? Like thoughts on entertaining a motion of $500,000 now, and if the project needs more funding, same vehicle that we're talking about now to give them $500,000 is an addition and contingency that could be done at a later date if $500,000 doesn't get them through. They did make a request for $800,000 with a $200,000 contingency. I'd also be in favor of a motion that says $800,000 and maybe you don't come back with the contingency. I'd like to hear some discussion on those potential.
So, Chair, if you can just clearly state which of those two options you'd like to discuss first, that way people can speak on which of those items and then that can be clearly discussed on whichever item.
Half now, half later. Comments?
Well, I would support $500,000 now, and then at the next cycle, we would entertain another forestry, another proposal. As opposed to $1 million now and not having anything, not funding fire reduction at the next meeting, at the next cycle.
Okay. Any other comments? thoughts on?
I think that's a good strategy. The one thing I would say is that, depending on how those contracts are set up for the fuels reduction, it may be an extra burden on staff. And I don't know if we can ask them for comment on that as well, but
With the parks manager here, so, further comments?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. I'm sorry that I'm not Tice and don't have his amazing knowledge that he has. And I was just actually going through some thoughts myself. You're talking about the money now versus the money later. And I'm still getting my head around the new NCIP schedule and how that lines up with how we do our fuel mitigation. So even I'm trying to get my head around how that works, because if we get money now and we can't get money later, but how does that line up with our ethics and what we do? The question about the contract is also a good one. We do have multi-year contracts with our tree contractors. So I would hope that it's okay, that we have written them in such a way that we should be able to draw down on that, but I would have to know for you. Yeah, I'll know. Just something to keep in mind.
I do have a question for you. Your contracts with who do the fuel mitigation, do those start at the same time every year? And if so, when whereabouts in the calendar year is that?
I don't know exactly when they start because we write them, we go through RFP. That's a very significant process, the heavy lift for us to get them done. That's why we do multi-year contracts so that they try to we can blend them through.
So is it done as needed or is it like?
Yeah, as we pay as we go. Okay, yes. So sometimes we have more help from CAL FIRE or from Green Cadre, and we're able to really compound the work that we can do when we have that as an assistant.
Thank you.
I have a question as well. So the 800,000 that's in the original request, is there a timeline on that we could somehow track with when we're looking at this?
I mean, is a timeline as
Well,
far as the.
yeah, the 800, how was that figure
So
determined? And is there a
Andrea may know more than me, but Tice and Sabina, who handle all of our contracts in forestry, they sat down with the new NCIP schedule and sat down with what we normally do, the type of work that we do. And then they try to keep in mind and estimate what kind of support we might get from CAL FIRE or Green Cadre. And then they did their best to kind of estimate how much money would they need in order to be going full steam ahead to keep the work going. The other aspect that we have to keep in mind is weather. Sometimes weather allows us to do more work and sometimes it allows us to do less work. And then also sometimes the weather makes more work for us. So they try to weigh all those things and do an educated guess. Andrea was very helpful and beneficial to us. Like, look, I need to know when you think you're going to run out of money and how much money you think you're going to need in order to get us through this cycle. And they sat down and just tried to do the best they could to estimate what that might be. Because it does vary from year to year with so many different factors.
So I just wanted to echo what Karen said. It is a time sensitive project. And so we would have to see how that fits. I mean, we're not trying to get 2 years worth of it in one, but what we need to do is see how the cycle fits with the timing of fuel reduction.
So that's why I couldn't guarantee right now when I'm trying to figure out the new schedules. Because we don't want to come back and feel like, hey, we already gave you money. So and we're doing this at the request of the community. I mean, we're hearing it from the community, like, please don't stop work, please keep going. We're trying to do our best to serve the community and the requests that we're hearing. We don't want to get behind either, if they don't have to take a break. Anything else at the moment? Okay, thank you.
How long does this calculated 800, should that get to the next voting cycle, or how far is that lined out to be?
I don't have the answer, but we will get you the answer.
I think what we're doing is a one-time change because of the schedule change that we've done. And I think we will end up considering it so that we have it approved for next year's, year after this one's spending. Otherwise, we'd have to do another another contingency type thing like we're doing now next year to be able to support next year's force needs. So I think we need to look at this as a one-time calendar change event that we need to do. And given, if I could say that, given that their original request was 800,000 with 200 contingency, I'd say why don't we, my motion changes to have money to 800,000 and in consideration of discussion.
And we will, and that includes getting another fire reduction one in for July.
Yeah, because we will have to fund for the next year because the way we push the calendar, we couldn't get them done during the period that they need it. And the calendar change. So this is a one-time change that we have to do. So do I hear a second on 800,000?
I'll second.
Going once, twice, there you go. Call the question.
Okay, roll call, Aguirre Oaks,
Aye.
Alta Mesa,
Aye.
Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
Del Monte Grove Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown,
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats,
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey is not available, Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Aye.
Via Del Monte,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to receive presentation on several prior NCIP projects approved by City Council in previous fiscal years and make a recommendation to City Council. These are basically challenge projects that have issues that may not allow them to ever get done. And I think we should consider whether or not we should pull them off the agenda or not. In the next year's presentation.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. So yes, we're on the presentation on prior year projects. So I just have some information that I wanted to share, kind of give you a view of some of the data. So I talked about this briefly last meeting, but then I felt like maybe it would help to add some charts to it as well. So again, in 2023, we ended with 35 projects and roughly $5.6 million in budget. By the end of 2024, we were at 54 projects and $9.5 million in budget. And currently, we're sitting at 79 projects and $18.7 million in budget. Unfortunately, Kurt, the representative from Old Downtown, is not currently here, but he submitted back in 2020 a project nomination form stating there are currently 31 projects that have been started and 92 projects in design phase. And he was requesting $150,000 to $250,000 to hire consultant engineers to work on projects. So quick math, that's roughly 120 projects. We're not quite there yet, but we're at 79, and I don't know, we might be there in 2 years, right? Based on our current kind of project load. So other thing I wanted to share is a specific section in the NCIP policies and procedures manual, section 4, neighborhood improvement process, neighborhood support, page 3. A couple of sentences that jump out. Neighborhood community improvement program representatives are required to determine to what extent projects have support within their neighborhood. And several projects are highly sensitive and require written proof of support from the owners of affected properties, generally those adjacent to the project. These types of projects include things like streetlights, include radar speed signs, sidewalks, other things that are right, adjacent to others' property and have direct effects. And this will come up on a couple projects later on in this presentation. And Parker handed out to the members here in the community room this blank form as an example of kind of what we've been using in the program over the years to show neighbor support. Okay, so to go over projects, we'll start with the pre-2020 NCIP projects. So these are some of the oldest approved projects that are still on the books. So the Mar Vista reconstruction design. I'll use this format generally going through the presentation, talk about challenges, kind of recommendations, and kind of where we are on the projects. So for Mar Vista, we have a significant challenge. 3 of the 4 neighbors on the corner or the intersection at Mar Vista Drive and Toda Vista have specifically stated that they do not support the project. They don't want to lose on-street parking in front of their residents. They don't want lights into in front of their or behind or adjacent to their properties. So based on the NCIP policies and procedures, there's no way to move forward on this intersection, and we still need to evaluate the level of support at Mar Vista Drive and Via Gayuba. If we receive a similar response, then there's no way to move this project forward. 37, so the next one, Casa Verde Way Recreation Trail Crossing. For those that travel Del Monte or live in the Del Monte Beach neighborhood, I'm sure you've noticed that this project has recently got underway. So we're moving on this one. All right, so 2020 NCIP projects, Emergency Operations Center upgrade. So we've completed the design of the equipment necessary to bring the room up to the operations center up to kind of current needs and standards. That's and back in 2019, 2020, the NCIP committee approved roughly $72,000 for emergency operations center upgrade. Based on the design and equipment specifications, we would need an additional $433,000, roughly $500,000 total to complete this project. Colton Hall restoration and preservation. So we have multiple challenges with the Colton Hall facility and the grounds. We have site-wide drainage issues. So based on archaeologists and architect reports, they're saying that one of the key things that we need to address on the property is pooling of water up against both the jail and the Colton Hall building. So when water sits around those facilities, it actually destroys the stone, destroys the foundations. So the foundations for both of those structures are in danger. We may ultimately need to replaster Colton Hall. The wood around the buildings is exposed and untreated, and it's being rotted away as we speak. So the wood structures are in danger, and we will definitely need additional funding to complete the project. We don't know exactly how much at this point. We know that we're seeking other funding, specifically through grants. The structure is identified as a historically significant, but it is not on the register, I think, for historic places. One of the reasons for that is because the plaster was removed and it affected the period of significance, right? So the building during the period of significance was plaster and also had a pink hue, which you can see on the backside of the building, which is not visible on the Pacific Street side. So there's some needed conversation and decisions that are going to have to happen, I think, in order to move the Colton Hall project forward. 2023 projects, we have Upper Windermere Log Drop. So where we've been working on defining the scope and getting the right expertise to really move this project forward. It has significant challenges. One in which the original design was overcome rather quickly. It seems, I would say, it was undersized. So to put back what was there doesn't really make sense, so to speak. And then we also have additional challenges with permitting, working within the drainage channel, and we'll also need additional funding to complete this project. The lighted crosswalk at Webster and Camino El Estero, we've completed the design. And at this point, we're looking for an opportunity to bundle several projects, street and sidewalk projects. So this would be included in that type of work. Mark Thomas Drive, Oak Grove neighborhood sign. We have reached out to Caltrans on multiple occasions and have received no response. So we're still waiting. We continue to reach out. It's their property. We need an encroachment permit in order to install a sign on their property. Via Paraiso Park expression swings. We have just insufficient space to install an expression swing in the playground area at Via Paraiso Park. And city staff recommends closeout of this project. 2319 Divisadero 700 block drainage swale construction. Again, this is similar to that crosswalk project. We've completed design and are looking for an opportunity to bundle it to get best pricing for the work. And we have some candidates coming up. We're doing some other street work in the new Monterey neighborhood. So this one, we see it moving forward. Skyline Forest Drive, Holman Highway Bridge restoration. We're looking at some various products to treat the bridge structure and make it more graffiti resistant. So it is moving. Public restroom study. We would recommend considering a rescope of this project. And that is something that can be brought back and discussed later date. Larkin Park swings installation, similar to Via Paraiso, has insufficient space to install swings in that playground area, and we recommend project closeout. Dondavi Creek Path, Dondavi Park Creek Path. So we've worked on a preliminary design. We are still pressing PG&E, and as of this afternoon, actually made some tangible progress to get this equipment it's in the path relocated. So that's positive. But we do face some challenges on doing actual construction in this drainage canal. It's quite a significant amount of work over a long stretch, and will definitely present some challenges. Casanova Avenue 500 block sidewalk. The property owner on that block does not support the installation of a sidewalk. Based on their lack of support, staff recommends project closeout. So move to 2024 NCIP projects that were approved most recently. Ryan Ranch Park 8-court pickleball court design. So as you remember, City Council decided that it's not best at this time to move forward with construction. So city staff is recommending some reconsideration of this project, rescope it, and keep in mind that there are 8 recently installed pickleball courts at MPC on their campus. And we do have a 2025 project to install pickleball courts at the Monterey Tennis Center. So there's that one. Ferrante Park Playground improvements. This one we haven't moved on yet, and it's lack of staff that's holding this one back, and others which you'll see coming up here, specifically in this 2024 list of projects. Casanova Avenue 500 block streetlight. We have the challenge there with a lack of support from the property owner, and staff recommends project closeout. Monterey Vista conduit installation. This this project specifically identified a street in the Monterey Vista neighborhood for conduit, specifically, not necessarily utility undergrounding. Staff recommendation on this would be to tie it in with the undergrounding program and consider rescoping the nomination to add some flexibility. Veterans Park Bocce Ball Court is pending some staff availability. Windermere Lower Canyon Drainage Project, similar issues that I spoke of with the Upper Canyon. Again, trying to define the scope and get the right expertise, challenges with permitting, construction in the drainage channel, and we may need additional funds. Beachway Boardwalk extension, staffing dependent. Surfway Roberts Avenue fencing restoration is staffing dependent. The Lower Presidio Slope Monument restoration. This, I would say, is staffing dependent and specifically expertise dependent. So, I mean, it's not something that we normally do. Shoreline Park Fish Hopper restoration, staffing dependent. So those were the projects, and the one that's not on here was the also included in the agenda packet was the Casa Verde underpass, but that's going to go back to council for decision and discussion. So I'll open this up now for committee questions. And we can, how?
Go through project to project, or are we gonna discuss it just?
Once it gets to the point of NCIP committee member comments, which is after public comment, then yes, we can go through each, if that's how you prefer to. So that would be appropriate at the committee member comment section.
So any general comments or questions about the presentation from NCIP?
There's a hand raised by Luz Adams and Jamie Fields.
I would like to see again the status of our project on Mark Thomas Drive. I didn't see the reason for not happening. Can you show it again? Okay. So you're still waiting for Caltrans about this.
So correct. We've built the sign, or we've purchased or constructed it. It's sitting in our city sign shop up at Ryan Ranch property, but we don't have Caltrans approval. So I mean, we could try and identify an alternate location. That would be one option. So I mean, unfortunately, but Cody on our staff every so often he reaches back out, but we've been unsuccessful.
Well, I would assume that it's still on the projects. It could happen, right?
Yes, it could happen.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Jamie Fields.
Rules in the handbook. Sorry, 500 block widening. We have specific rules in the handbook about adjoining property owners needing to approve, especially when you're taking parking away. Is it 100% must approve, or I thought it was more like a 90% approval?
We've been working on the, I guess we'll call it the policy that specifically affected adjacent property owners, especially with sidewalk improvements, since they are responsible in the future to maintain that sidewalk improvement. That we require their agreement in order to move forward with that improvement.
Okay, I think in Del Monte Beach, when we put sidewalks in, we did it as a majority vote, but right now we're saying 100%. Okay, thank you.
Is there a chance the projects that have challenges, that those challenges couldn't be met before the project is forwarded to the committee for review? In other words, if you need buy-in from neighbors, can the submitter, it goes back to their responsibility to get those petitions instead of wheel spinning like we've done. I mean, we had a project in our neighborhood. We need a memo of agreement with the Monterey school. It never went to the school board, and we spun our wheels and spun our wheels. We would have never, I mean, it shouldn't have ever come before the committee until that piece, especially in that case, where the Caltrans, could these challenges be met before they end up in front of the committee?
I would say that I think there's a large percentage that can. I think that sometimes we also run into challenges as we work on a project, so you can't always anticipate. But say like neighbor support. I mean, if somebody, I mean, the last couple of cycles we've received multiple requests for streetlights. So if someone is requesting a street light, I think we need to be, I think it's always been kind of in the policy, but I don't think it's been strictly enforced. I think going forward, it would be helpful to say if someone is requesting a sidewalk or a street light, that, the committee, look for this form, right? The form, support that designates, okay, you have support from that person or persons in order to install those lights. Because yeah, it does come up. It's like just as an example, Del Robles Avenue in the Villa Del Monte neighborhood, there was a request to install 4 street lights by a person that doesn't live on that street. And then when we go out and say, oh, we're gonna, we have a project to install streetlights. So they're like, well, whose idea was that? And where did it come from? And I never wanted, I don't, so you have those types of conversations. So I would say going forward, I think it would be a best practice to require the form.
Just a quick question for the staff and maybe for anyone, and that is, at what point does something like a rapid flashing beacon or a street light or a sidewalk do the better good of the public to have it than the one person who may object to it? And I don't know what authority is that decision made.
I think that's the crux of a lot of these issues. And I think that, I guess I'm no expert, but I will say that I think that if it's truly a safety issue and there is an objection, I think it has to get elevated outside of the NCIP committee. And then that's something that, say, city council is going to have to take on and consider and fund if necessary and appropriate. I think the NCIP is a place where the projects are supposed to have like grassroots support. There's supposed to be something that improves, but everyone is for it. If it's something where it's like, this is contentious, it has to get elevated.
I think you've heard me say this before. It's incumbent on us to help staff get these projects through. And, if there are things on here that we can pick up the list and go seek the approval, then maybe we should consider not doing a removal. And I think we should probably look project by project. What can we not do? And let's take them off the table. Let's not fool the public and say, we're gonna be able to do all of these. If we can't, we can't. But if we can with more effort, then let's support the effort. This was committee clarification, so now it's further comment. We have people online as well.
We Yes, we currently have 3 people with their hands raised online.
Good evening, Caleb Boston, opponent of the Casa Verde Highway 1 underpass. I know this might be a little moot, but I just again want to clarify that phase 1 of that project, which is the hardscaping, has already been approved by City Council in September 2022. And it was approved for $550,000. So the only thing, your last meeting, this committee approved sending phase 2, the art murals, to City Council for funding. So, and my second comment has to do with gaining property owner approval. In the, I don't know what happened on that Del Robles. I wasn't even aware of that. Because, well, I was the president of our neighborhood association, but in the past, our NCIP reps actually reached out to the proponents for any project in our neighborhood, and they would go, and I actually went around with them too, and knocked on doors and asked residents if they approved this proposal before it even went to NC. So I think, like you said, better practice and you reaching out to make it easier for staff. That really, I would really strongly encourage that. And I'm gonna look at who submitted that proposal. Next, in my neighborhood, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Members of the committee, recorder with Alta Mesa. I actually have a question on the Dundabi Park one that was on your list, because I'm very confused, because I remember seeing a finished plan, which actually had stages on it. We actually submitted 2 sets of projects to those, got them approved, but then they got defunded as part of the new funding. So I'm not sure what it is that's actually having the issue right now. Because I thought there was already planned, so it doesn't need to be tonight, but I'd love to meet with you to see, because I'm sure Amy would like to know a lot more on this as well, since she's got no background. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the Pat Benza, a little confused, because I know way back when that it was as a NCIP rep, it was my responsibility to have all that checklist that everybody approved was my responsibility. That should not be on staff. And if all those check marks were done prior to the job even getting, or the project getting here, some would be eliminated before they got here. And it would give staff some free time to get the jobs done. It seems to me that he's getting loaded with things that he shouldn't even have to be doing. Thank you.
We have 3 online.
After public comment.
So we'll start with Ray Myers.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ray Myers. I lived in Monterey most of my life. I'd like to speak briefly on NCIP 2422, the conduit project. I'm currently the chairperson of Monterey Undergrounding, a subcommittee originally in our neighborhood association, but now it's grown to include members in all districts of Monterey. Our group was formed to the urgent concern for safety, lack of consistent power, and to preserve our natural beauty. You know, years ago, Monterey Undergrounding put together an NCIP proposal to demonstrate how effectively it would be to combine reconstructing projects such as our roads when possible to save money from eliminating much of the redundancy and keeping with our city's dig once policy. Of all the projects listed for your consideration tonight, the undergrounding project NCIP 2422 for the conduit installation may be among the most important, because this project came about from a group of dedicated people volunteering on the undergrounding program. Please understand this project should not be defunded, but rescoped. It may be combined with other important underground NCIP projects, such as the recently approved MN06, the multi-neighborhood project to create an underground city program. MN06 won broad support and became the #2 choice on voting night in June of 2024. This new program will also assist the Fremont Street undergrounding Rule 20 funding shortcomings that must be made up by the city in order to prevent losing already approved millions of dollars in PG&E tariff money due to shortages and time limits. So please consider how important undergrounding is to our city's future, as street by street undergrounding will make us safer, more resilient, and or return our natural beauty. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to a caller identified as iPhone. You should be able to speak.
Hi, it's Jean Rash, and I want to support everything that Ray Myers just said, and that I'm sure Hans Janisch will say. Hans and I and Ray wrote the proposal. I support the idea of any flexibility that the staff needs to combine it with the other funds for undergrounding. And I appreciate all the time staff is taking with this and support a combined effort and a united pool of money with the other 2 million. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll go to the last caller, Jim. Jim, you should be able to speak. If you have to unmute.
How's that? Can you hear me? This is Jim.
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah, this is Jim Cullum. I'm the Traffic and Safety Chairman of the Skyline Forest Neighborhood Association. And I'd like to speak in support of the work we're requesting on the bridge on Skyline Forest Drive adjacent to Holman Highway. This project's actually been in the works a long time, and it's not a very big project. It's pretty straightforward. I think I would ask the committee to keep in mind that particular bridge is one of the primary entrances to our city, not just to Skyline Forest. From the southern boundary of the city, there's not very many ways to get into the city other than cutting through Skyline Forest Drive. And the thing has been hit by vehicles a number of times, folding off the edge of the K-rails. And more noticeably, it's been graffitied over the years with kind of a quick patch, which as usual, whenever you try to patch graffiti, you wind up with something that's almost as bad as the graffiti. It looks like a checkerboard of various paint colors. So it should be pretty straightforward. It shouldn't require a lot of study to figure out what an anti-graffiti coating would look like. That's very readily available through most paint contractors and companies. What we need is for someone to get in there, clean it up, improve the appearance into our city and into our local community, and we would request your support. Thank you very much.
And that was the end of online public comment.
So, any comments, since this is go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to make a quick comment that this list was at the request of NCIP committee, that we do talk about projects that have been taking a long time. Not to say that they can't be done, not to say that we are not working on them. Reggie has been doing a fabulous job. He's one person. We've also had challenges with consultants. And so again, I don't want anybody to take this as any kind of kill list or anything. For example, Del Monte Casa Verde is here. It's now moving. The reason why it took so long is it had federal funding. So this is just as showing you the projects that have been around for a while.
I think just to start and say, I think there's a few of these that I think are probably pretty easy to talk about and to get rid of. And then some will be harder. So maybe we could do, I support kind of going through each one. Yeah, that's my speech.
So, I think just general comments, I think it would be helpful for each NCIP rep to kind of take a look at this list, which projects are in their neighborhood, and then kind of take ownership in terms of communicating with the submitter. I think there may be submitters who are not even aware of the status of any of these projects. And I think before we kind of talk about making recommendations to close out, just making sure that the submitter has the opportunity to be made aware of the status and understand what the challenges are. And that may result in them saying, okay, that's fine. You know, we can close that out. But I do think it would be good to just make sure that that opportunity is there before making any decisions. And I will give the floor, but prior to making any motions, but in my head, I'm thinking, let's take the time to kind of reach out to the submitter, give them updates on the challenges, and then next meeting, be able to provide updates to the rest of the committee on what we've done. But I do understand there's other comments as well, so.
I'll throw in a comment now, and I think we should probably just go around the room because we have so many neighborhoods involved. We should probably just go rep by rep and maybe discuss each one of them after quick comments on that. I think because of COVID, we've had a period of time that's gone by on some of these projects and the seeking support in the neighborhoods probably are not current. And probably is incumbent on us as representatives of those various neighborhoods to refresh those support documents. And if we're seeing one of these being challenged by support and non-support, let's affirm that that's the case, so then we can move it off the list if that's necessary, or get it done if that's got approval. So I think it may not be at the time we have the list, but now that we're working potentially towards construction, is that list correct? I think it behooves on us to get that for staff, in those kind of challenge projects. Amy? What you? I was just gonna go all the way around. Because there's so many projects, I think it warrants having each person have a discussion. Oh, thank you.
I do like the idea of having each rep go back and look at the projects that are in their neighborhood and talk to the neighbors and find out where they are. You know, I'm also like Rick, for some reason I thought the Don Dottie design work had already been done. But maybe I got that from Rick, I'm not sure. At any rate, I would like, rather than sort of voting on anything tonight on it, I would rather be able to dig into where they are and come back at the next at a later time and be able to speak to the ones that are in our neighborhood. I did have one question. Several of the ones were staffing dependent. And how does that relate to, you brought up earlier, there was 150 to 250 available. Somebody was gonna take some of the funds and put it towards.
Oh, that was, so yeah, that was an example of a project that was submitted back in 2020.
Oh, okay.
It's not a current project. And as I said at the last meeting, we currently have 20 projects out contracted right now that are being worked on by two different, 10 with one consultant and 10 with another. So we are moving on those. And I would just say that the ones that are staff dependent, they're kind of like, once we finish a set, we move on to those. It's just, you know, limitations, right? There's only so many days or hours in a day and that sort of thing.
So they're on this list just because it's an update for.
Correct.
They have.
Correct.
Anybody needs to do it. Okay, well, that was all my comments.
I will walk back my comment before, because I really think there is no urgency necessarily to cancel 1616 or 1214 but I think we could probably get to a couple of them tonight if we wanted to spend that time, but doing the due diligence, getting some research coming back, I think is fair. I think we should give permission to work with the staff to table anything that they haven't really, that, you know, if we're gonna come back and potentially cancel something that they, you know, should focus efforts on things that are already in progress or that have really good potential, instead of, you know, with extra time going back to work on something that we may pull the plug.
I'm in agreement that Rep should go back and try to contact the original submitter to find out if they even want to move forward. Things like the sidewalk project, it could be a new owner that lived there and now wants a sidewalk. In terms of the sidewalk projects, because the cost of maintaining the sidewalk falls upon the homeowner, I, as a committee member, unless that project has the support of the people that the sidewalk is gonna go in front of, I'm not, even though it might be for the public safety, I'm not inclined to pursue a project that does not have someone who's affected and could have a financial burden. But I do think, for example, the project I came back with tonight from my original submitter, it changed. And so, he had pursued his original proposal, and I looked, and that project was submitted in 2019, 2020. So that was 4 years ago, which some of these are still. So I think the best idea is to go back, the original submitter, see if they even want to pursue it, or if they might have some alteration or, you know, current conditions, it could be totally different. So I'm in favor of that. Again, like Scott said, there's no urgency. These projects have been kind of just sitting there for quite a while. So I think that's the best course before we make any motion on it.
There's the two Casanova Avenue projects, and I reached out to the property owner yesterday thinking maybe he's changed his mind, but unfortunately not. One thing I noticed though, I didn't know the submitter of the sidewalk project until I saw this agenda packet because they were blacked out in the project manual that went out originally. So a request would be to show the submitter's name on this year's new project list. The Casanova streetlight though may have new life if we place it across the street. And there's neighborhood support for that I've discovered today. So if we could, yes, I'm familiar with it. I'll go through the legwork. The submitter is very persistent. Thank you. Oh, thanks. That one.
I agree, it's probably good to go back and keep up to the topic. I'm looking at this, I think the only one for downtown is Colton Hall. Consider Colton Hall.
Colton Hall and the crosswalk, but yes. Webster and Camino El Estero. I think it is, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
Can't hear him.
He said he doesn't have any projects in Fisherman Flats, so he supports others doing the work.
I think we should take the information home. We should be studying this. It's time for us to study the project, get our questions ready for staff. And then we can also prioritize when we're looking at the projects of how we feel, what should take priority, whether it's the trees or the sidewalks first, whatever. But starting to go over projects tonight without having prior study, some of the people only have the beginning of the agenda. Some of us have, you know, printed a lot of the other stuff. I think we need to look at the information and then come back to NCIP and have our questions answered and study and our priorities and then vote on them.
Okay, I'll talk with a few projects. First, the Mar Vista reconstruction design. There were two projects. One was a design project for all the intersections, and the next was a build one of the intersection problem. And I mentioned before that there was a lack of support on the upper road. We initially thought we'd start at the top and go down, but since there isn't, I'll be happy to go down and look at other intersections and, look at which other intersection. Because there's 3 other intersections that are all possible for this project. And I'll be happy to go out and talk to all the four corner people. I know at a couple intersections, there are totally new residence houses have sold, and people were against it up on back when I went around the houses many years ago, but both those houses have sold, so that shouldn't be a problem. But my question is are you talking about just the design project here, or are you talking about the build project?
The design for those 2 intersections was complete. I don't know enough to know if any other intersections have been completed, but I could look into it.
But this is not the build project, this is the design.
No, it's we're talking construction.
Okay, because you have the design project. Now, was the design project that wasn't completely finished, right? That was the one that didn't get defunded during.
So the one you're talking about, this project, I could not find, I found 2 different nomination forms, which I included in the packet. Well, I think they were both submitted. Well, they were both submitted by you, I believe.
Yeah.
But it's so well aged that it's really hard to find all the paperwork. So I don't know exactly what was or was not included in the original scope. But what we have right now, we have design plans that have been completed for work at the Mar Vista Drive in Villa Gayuba and Mar Vista Drive in Toda Vista. There may be something in the files for other intersections. I'm just not aware of it. So I can look and see, but I personally spoke to, the property owners at Toda Vista.
And I mentioned that earlier too, so I knew that there was more resistance up there than there was. I'll go recheck all that and be happy to take that over. But this is the actual construction project.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the design, right?
Right. Correct.
So, but the design project also has some time left in it, I believe, or some money left in it to finish either the other intersections put towards the roundabout at the bottom.
This project was all lumped together. So it's just one.
Oh, it is now.
It's one pot, yes. So that's what, yes. So this Mar Vista design includes design and construction.
Okay. Okay. Then I wanted the Via Paraiso expression swings. I know there were a number of expression swings requested by the submitter at a number of parks. We're asking to cancel 2 of them tonight. And were there any that were that she put in that were we able to build any of them?
Yes. So there is at least one expression swing at Dennis Dominguez Park that I'm aware of. I don't know if there are any other ones, but there is an expression swing at Dennis Dominguez Park as a result of these NCIP projects.
Okay. All right. And has she been, because I know there's a number of neighborhoods they're in, so I could reach out to her about this one, but I mean,
I spoke with her earlier yesterday, but I mean, yeah, we didn't speak about alternative options. It was just that it's on the agenda. So I mean,
okay. I was wondering if she's okay with just the one, or if she really wants more.
I did not ask that question.
All right, the public restroom study, I know it was canceled because we heard because it went in a direction of looking at what homeless people need rather than what tourists need, or what was maybe you can clarify why it was canceled.
Well, my understanding was it was a water issue, and it was also to say timing and resources. And then when I went back and looked for the original application or nomination form, which was why I was recommending perhaps it'd be appropriate to consider a rescope, that it was, I'm sure there was some conversation that happened during that year when before voting, which I wasn't here for, but it was the nomination form actually identified installing restrooms, I think, at Del Monte Beach. So, I'm sorry, at Lake El Estero. It was, yeah, it was installed public restrooms at El Estero Lake. And it somehow, I think it must have gotten kind of modified during the discussion, but we don't have an actual NCIP nomination form for a public restroom study. So if it got modified and what was voted on, but there isn't one, because I looked high and low.
Recollection is that we had like a lot of bathrooms
Yeah.
as project submissions, to the point where it was a lot, and the discussion was, why don't we figure out the best place to have a bathroom versus each neighborhood putting in different bathrooms.
And that was a project that did a study, was supposed to study where bathrooms went.
I don't recall there being an individual, I think it was part of a discussion, but it kind of changed scope.
Okay.
As I recall, it was a modified change of scope done by the committee to put it on the bucket and make it study.
Right, and then that study started, and then that study somehow got off the rails and Hans pulled it, right, at some point. I'm so sorry. We have somebody in the audience who explained it to us at one point.
I think we have someone from Public Works.
So I think in general, what we did is we got an RFP and then the results of the RFP weren't quite what we were looking for. So it's hanging there, I guess. So that's why it's on a list. And there's no sense of moving forward, so.
Also, the problem is we haven't gotten anybody to really respond we haven't spent any money because we haven't gotten anybody who really can do the job or wants to do the job.
So we put out 2 RFPs. So the first one we got 0 responses to. The second RFP that went out, it came back and the scope was much broader, I think, than what I think some staff was looking for. It included a lot of items, and it was a higher price tag as well. So we never awarded it. So it's never been awarded. And like I said, we actually don't have like an NCIP project description. So I mean, ultimately it's hard to compare, say what the RFP went out, but it was an RFP that was kind of based on, I think, my thoughts alone, I guess I would say, right? I didn't have a NCIP nomination form to go back to. So that was how it was developed. And yes, I think hanging there is a good word.
Are you saying that we should maybe agendize this for discussion and give some more guidance towards
That is an option. Yes.
what,
I mean,
more guidance of how to do this? I think bathrooms are really important. I don't know how NCIP feels today, but definitely back in 5 years ago, that was of high importance for a lot of NCIP people to do a bathroom study and figure out.
I think there would be value in, the committee. If the committee thinks it's important, I think it would be valuable to document what the committee would like to see in a study. And, and then recommend that modification or an actual, because like I said, we don't have an actual scope for a study.
And we also need to consider if they're gonna be Portland Loos or something of the type, and we'd have to look at our water credits as well.
All right, moving on from that, is the Monterey conduit project, that was talked about. Yes, definitely, I think there's support to move those funds over into the undergrounding project and have it available for when that project gets going. And because I think fits pretty well. It was not, initially when it was submitted, it was not submitted for a particular street. It was later on when Monroe reconstruction was considered. We thought that might be a good place, but the scheduling and planning was not, didn't allow that to happen. So, but the original project had no street, any street available for it. So if that can just get moved over, I think that would be just as well.
Thank you for the clarification, because it said Monterey Vista, we weren't sure if it had to be a street in Monterey Vista, so since you said there, it could be anywhere in the city
Yeah,
that we
it
can
can be
do.
anywhere in the city, because initially when we submitted it, we were thinking it would go towards undergrounding, even up on my three.
That's a good possibility, for North Fremont to supplement the Rule 28, because we don't have enough funding there.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
what happened with Monroe is that design was already further
Yeah,
along
no,
enough
we understand.
that we can wait for PG&E. So it would have to be something that's far enough that we can wait on PG&E.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for the clarification.
And last was the Veterans Park bocce ball court, was, I know Louis had said before he retired that he'll do it on his own and at some point, but that never got done, so it's definitely should be an easy project, but I think that people are willing to wait, understand. Staff shortages. That's all from my neighborhood.
The Larkins Swing, originally, the submitter just wanted a swing. And Louis came out and there are state considerations, but he came up with a plan and it was for a tired swing. But then the project evolved and it's been sitting around for how many years now to the swings and door, which are impression swings, which we do not have room for. So I really like that, reconsidering, resurrect that old project and take a look at exactly, because Louis researched it and found a product that would work. So we would appreciate it. Give it a second look. That's it.
Time for a vote.
So, I'm sorry, online, do we want to go with, just Jamie Fields?
Thanks. I just want to say, you guys have had a really good discussion. I don't have anything material to add, other than I like the fact that we're going back and doing the work. And I was going to talk about that on the next agenda item. It's important for NIP reps to be engaged and bring that communication with their community back to this committee. Thanks.
All right, Luz Adams. Luz?
Yes. Are we giving any comment right now?
Yeah, so this is, yes, committee comment on the agenda item, the projects that were delayed. You had asked a question about the neighborhood sign. Do you have any other comments?
Well, yes, because it's taking so long. And all we wanted is to have a sign at that entrance of our neighborhood. So I heard you saying that it's still on the works and you are waiting for Carl Trans to give us some approval. Is that the real situation?
Yes, that is the real situation.
Okay, so we continue waiting, right?
Well, we're working towards getting it approved, and we'll keep working. We're not just waiting.
Or if there's
Okay.
in place that could go that's not on Caltrans property, it could get put in today because the sign is going to be built.
Okay, so we will communicate that to our neighbors.
And that's the kind of thing where we need to go back and say, okay, we can't do it here, but I can do it over there. Is that okay? Let's do it. Any comments
Okay.
online?
Yes, Tammy Jennings.
I don't have any comments. You guys have discussed it pretty well. Thank you.
Okay, AJ I see it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, AJ.
Sure. No, I appreciate the thoughtful discussion on this topic. I think the strategy to work through the representatives to track down these loose ends is great. If you do become being relatively new to NIP, NCIP, making sure that we're tracking down those projects for our neighborhoods is something on the top of my mind. And so I may be reaching out to Reggie and Parker to make sure I'm not forgetting any. I had a neighbor reference a project recently, but haven't been able to find it yet. And so I want to make sure I don't leave that hanging, but thank you.
A couple of comments. One of my comments is, and one of the reasons I wanted us to consider this is 25 projects out of the 80 active projects that are going. So about a third of things that are occupying staff's time that could make them more efficient if they don't have to worry about these for right now. Some of these, though, were kind of in process, like the graffiti-less paint stuff on the bridge going in the skyline. That seems like it can move ahead. In respect of staff time, taking 25 projects that they're thinking about off the table for right now, let's them focus on the ones to get more done, so we can get more done, we can get these ones figured out. On the other side of staff time, everyone who's got a project that they're looking at is welcome to go visit with city staff to understand what the history, et cetera, is. And I think Reggie's pretty open to that, sharing information so that you can be brought up to speed to know where you need to pick up and what are the other nuances of that project. I would entertain any motions on specific things like taking the underground thing and merging it that we can act on tonight. But if we don't have those, that's fine. I would prefer that we have good actions that we take and we're considered due diligence. So then the next question is, when is your homework due? When should we meet again and be able to opine on some of these issues and leave that open?
Well, based on the current calendar, we have an opportunity for a meeting on, I think it's April 26th, which is on the agenda to answer that question. Or April 16th, I'm sorry, April 16th.
How do people feel about moving sooner? I heard someone say sooner and someone say March. Any discussion on that topic?
Once we consult with our neighbors, then we have to give the information to Reggie, and they have to sort of formalize it. So your original question of when is homework due, I think is more important. Or when staff needs it so that they can come up.
That's an excellent point. Yes, thank you. I mean, in an ideal world, it would be great to have a month before the meeting. It does take quite a bit to pull an agenda together. And we are doing other things as well. So if we keep the April 16th meeting, I would say that, say, March 16th would be a great time to have, whatever items you would like to discuss and any updates or revisions delivered to city staff. So give you a month, a little less. Today is February 18th or 19th, sorry, February 19th. So a little less than a month, plus or minus.
We want the updates by March 16th.
Okay, March 17th. Yeah, get your homework done early.
Can't have on-site vacancy.
Well, you, as the vice chair, you could pick a date. My recommendation would be March 17th.
Probably since we've been meeting on Wednesdays, it's probably the 19th.
We all get our homework in, we all have a
the afternoon. No, there won't be a meeting.
So,
Does that make sense to everyone?
yes, I was just about to say, we would like, now that the committee has received the presentation and you have received comments from one another, it would be appropriate at this point to make a motion to agendize the item or whatever sort of motion you'd like to make in regards to the things I have discussed.
I move that we agendize for a meeting on April 16th, review of all of these projects, with each of the representatives doing due diligent homework and presenting to staff by March 19th, March 17th. That's not a meeting, it's actually getting there. And we have a second
From New Monterey, thank you. Roll call, Aguajita Oaks.
Hold on, give me 1 second. I gotta,
should there be any discussion on that motion?
No, you can just make the motion at that point.
Aye.
Thank you. Alta Mesa,
Aye.
thank you. Casanova Oak Knoll,
Aye.
Deer Flats,
Aye.
Del Monte Beach,
Aye.
thank you. Del Monte Grove, Laguna Grande,
Aye.
Downtown.
Aye.
Fisherman's Flats.
Aye.
Glenwood,
Aye.
Monterey Vista,
Aye.
New Monterey,
Aye.
Oak Grove,
Aye.
Old Town,
Aye.
Skyline,
Aye.
and Via Del Monte.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, on to discussing the prioritization of NCIP nominations to be received for fiscal 2025 and 2026 cycle, which is item number 7 on the agenda.
Yes, so this is the final item on public appearance this evening. And give me 1 second for the presentation to update. There's a slight delay. Apologize. So this one will be like I said, the presentation is short and it was meant for committee discussion and no action. Right, I don't think there's no action on this item tonight. It's simply discussion. Discuss ideas for prioritizing new project nominations for this upcoming NCIP cycle 25-26. Some of the ideas that have been, I guess, thrown out, have been proposed are things like focus on existing projects and don't take any new projects. Limit the number of project nominations, that are recommended to city council, whether that be something like 5 or 10 or 15. The other idea has been prioritize larger multi-neighborhood projects. And the committee is welcome to come up with other ideas. Again, this is not making a decision tonight. This is just having a discussion about what the committee would like to do and discuss or make a decision at a later date.
Clarifying question? Public comments?
Require. I think the bigger question that needs to be answered, what are you trying to accomplish with this? We have a problem with backlog. What has never happened is a in-depth discussion of how we can get rid of those backlogs on an ongoing basis. How many staff members would it take to do the backlogs on a regular basis? What does that cost? And is that funded by NIP to do it? We had an issue with backlogs and NIP funded Jeff Krebs, backlogs started going down. There's been zero discussions of that. All the discussions on dealing with backlog projects all comes back to the process is broken. We need to change the process. We need to do this. There's an issue with every one of those items brought up. Big multi-neighborhood projects take a lot of staff time. A little project for a historic sign on the rec trail does not. So number of projects is not the issue. Size of projects is not the issue. The issue is we don't have the staff to complete the work. So let's address how we solve that problem. Okay, we don't do any projects this year so that we can get caught up. Well, now we're going to have 3 times the projects in the subsequent year because that money is not going to go away. That money has to be spent in the NCIP process. So what does that solve? So I think what really needs to be the in-depth discussion is how do we put in place a process to deal with backlogs on an ongoing basis, working with staff, what would be necessary to do it in a regular basis. Historically, backlog's been caused for a lot of different reasons. We've had city managers intentionally put projects on the backlog to bankroll funds. We've had issues like we have now where we don't have enough engineers or staff. We've had issues where we're dealing with public works directors who didn't like to do the work. They wanted to focus on CIP versus CIP. So there's not one solution. The solution is how are we going to get them built? And let's focus on that instead of saying the problem is NCIP's process. The problem is not our process. The problem is the city coming up with a way to deal with building those things. Thanks.
Well, Rick and I don't always agree. And he knows far more than I'm sure, because he's been around a lot longer, even though he and I were just talking about, we met in 1982 on being on the ARC together. Anyway, I agree with the fact that not having enough staff is the ultimate problem. But I still say that at the very first meeting of the year, NCIP needs to come up with a plan, and the plan cannot be to add 35 more projects to the list. I could not believe last week when Reggie said there's already 80 projects in 3 years on the list. When I left NIP at the time, I think there was 120. And I do want to say that I disagree a little bit with Rick in that I can remember Jeff Krebs saying, it takes me as long to do a $10,000 project as it does a $100,000 project in doing the contracting stuff. Might not be all right, might be not all wrong, but there's still a lot involved no matter what the size of the project. So a few of us put together ideas that you all have in your package. Not saying they're the right ideas. I'm just trying to open up some discussion on some way to get this list down, because I find it deceptive to the people submitting projects that they're going to get it done. They're not. Until the pandemic and the list was scraped off, there was projects back to 2008. Ridiculous. So I'm just saying there has to be some discussion at the very beginning of this year as to how you want to handle it. Whether you take no projects, you take and do 2 big projects, you take your funds and hire contractors if they can be found, because I hear that's an issue. Because I agree that would be the best idea is to let's take this money and get all these projects done by adding contractors, but I'm hearing that's not possible. But or divvy it up. Okay, we're going to do 10 projects, new projects, and let's make sure we have more time and money to get the old projects done. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for public comments in the meeting? Anybody for public comments on the outside?
There's only one caller online and have not raised their hand, so no public comment online.
I know the chair and vice chair have been meeting with Public Works to see whether or not that's how do we get more consulting help or whatever. And pretty much we've explored that with city staff, and it's not really available. It's not a matter of money thrown at the project, unless you want to throw stupid money at the project, like double X cost. And then I'm not sure the resources are there because the local cities every cities tend to raise the price so that they can get ahead of us if we were to do that. So it is a labor problem, and like many businesses, they have labor problems. You know, what we can do about that is maybe some larger projects that are more benefit to the entire population in Monterey. But that's subject to what applications we get and what ideas in the approval of the NCIP. And we have to decide as a group what's best for the community and what's best for the money that we have to suggest to city council on where they get spent. But the labor staffing issue is real, and we've been having discussions for several months with city staff on that issue. It's not something that's going to go away tomorrow.
I'd just like to echo the comment. We run about 50 to 60% vacancy in engineering and project managers right now. We're seeing that other cities have the same issue, consultants have the same issue. We do have consultants that work on NCIP projects as well as CIP. So we give our consultants both NCIP and CIP, but they also have, what we're finding is limited bandwidth as we have to compete with the other cities for work. It's the opposite. Usually, you know, in the past, they used to come and talk to us and see if we can give them projects. And now we have to go talk to them, see if we can get our projects first. And so we've been trying. Also, what we're finding is in the industry, I read an article not that long ago, about last week, on is the quality of plans and projects diminishing. So what we are seeing is that the consultants themselves have folks that are more junior and experienced. And so that also takes staff time from our side so that we know the city and we know our rules and our infrastructure. So we have to look at their plans, make sure that it's buildable. So we're finding that, you know, there's a lot of and giving work to consultants when they also have an experienced folks is not sort of an end all solution. So we still have to spend quite a bit of time on it. Thank you.
I'll just add one point, I think, to the question, how many people would it take, right? So the FTE, full-time equivalent. So based on my math and numbers that I've come up with, and I would say that let's say a quality project manager can do between 1 and 1.5 projects a month. So, you know, whatever that comes out to, say 15 a year, I think is where we're at right now. So, I mean, anyone can do the math, but I think to get out of the, say, the hole we're in today, right now, 80-ish projects, I would say you need 7 project managers to say have a consistent. So if you had 30 projects a year, you would need 2 full-time project managers. So I think that just for reference and for discussion, that's kind of where in my mind, that's where you are. So if you had 30 projects a year, you would need 2 full-time staff members. To get out of where we are right now, it would take something on the order of 7.
So those are projects that, like regular projects that need design and so forth. But if you, let's say, we limit the number of projects that, you know, are full design projects that you would have to handle and design and so forth, versus other projects like funding or like forest management, where you wouldn't be involved in, where it's money that's going to another pot. Can we somehow break up those 2 classifications of projects and say we will only fund this much in classification 1 and we'll fund this much in classification 2, where it doesn't really need a lot of your time. That makes it easier, so we can kind of make kind of two pots of money or so forth that we can decide how we want to split it out.
So this is just a staff comment, obviously,
Yeah.
the decision is NCIP. So the city does have projects that are ongoing. So let's say, NCIP decided to, like ADA transition plan, for example, there's a certain amount that the city needs to do. So if NCIP wanted to fund part of that, those are efforts that are already ongoing.
Right, but can we right, and that'd be a really another example that we could fund. But could we, the way, right now we vote on all projects like they're all the same. But could we, for example, have two classes of projects and say, we're gonna have, we're gonna vote on smaller projects first, and we're only gonna do as many as Reggie can do in a year or less until he gets caught up or something. And then have the second class of projects for either ongoing projects or other things, and fund that in a separate, either in a separate voting cycle or kind of separate, basically have these two classes of projects. Kind of Reggie required and Reggie not required projects, I guess.
I think we can have a discussion when we do go over the projects that are nominated to talk about how they are. And I think that the recommendation for council to fund those projects, it could be through your voting after your discussion.
Right, so as staff comment, as is being implied, the schedule within the NCIP program allows you to make these discussions. Once you've received the project nominations, there are multiple meetings in which you guys are doing first review, second review. And so during that time, that would be an appropriate time for those sort of discussions and for you to determine what sort of ranking system you want to have. So it's within the scope of the NCIP to make that decision.
And then, I guess the question is all that for having kind of two voting sessions, like two classes of project be okayed by our rules.
It's an idea that we can consider. I think the public works manager.
So I'd have to check on that. I don't know. So if we want to do 2 voting nights, or if we want to classify the projects into ongoing or new projects, and then vote on them during voting night and see how they rank.
I guess there's probably some legal things that we can talk with Chrissy about. I don't know.
I'd have to check.
I'd like to move it on for other people's comments. Sure.
We have to do something about this list. And I favor a moratorium on new projects. And I know there was discussion about loss of faith within the community if we say we're cutting it off, no new projects this year. But I think we're losing faith with the residents and the fact that these projects aren't being done. I understand.
I was toying around with the same idea that, you said it better than what was in my head, but that somehow we can, at the beginning, sort of have an idea of what the staff resources available and come up with a system. I don't think it would be 2 voting nights, but I think in voting and ranking them, you could, it would sort of naturally fall out of these projects are new projects that can get done, and these are, and that's all we can get done. And as Rick pointed out, there'll be funds. I mean, there is a certain dollar amount in that those could be allocated to things that don't require staff time. So I like the idea of kind of giving a sort of a weighted average to projects, and keeping that in mind as we're doing the voting. So I'd like to explore that further.
I wrote down quote greater good projects. So again, with it in the eye of limiting or hopefully reducing some of the numbers, but also if we have to, I'm against necessarily closing the spigot, but seeing what we can do to be most efficient and also considering the designer engineer burden. If it's design, if it's a high design, high engineering burden, it's only going to impact perhaps one intersection or 5 households. I think that might be a metric in which we would look at things and moving forward.
I think something does need to be done, so we catch up or we don't keep digging the hole deeper. Not entirely sure a moratorium is the way to go. I think figuring out what staff can, how many new projects staff might be able to realistically undertake is better. I would rather limit the number of projects rather than saying, I mean, we've already got projects submitted for this cycle. So rather than just saying, no, we're not going to approve any new projects, I'd rather limit the number. And even if it's just a few, I'm more comfortable with approving 5 as opposed to, what we said last time, 50 or something like that. But again, we would need staff's input to find out realistically what that's going to be.
When we first started to consider this new calendar, we were considering the idea of, this is not going to be a business as usual year. And I think, given what we're hearing tonight, that's appropriate. But let's not forget the importance of safety projects. And I think if there's any category of projects that should rise to the top, we should be the ones versus, the nice to haves. That's all.
It seems like the cat's kind of out of the bag already, because we already have projects and we've extended the time. So we're going to really get into a lot more projects. So I'm not quite sure, we're kind of in a quagmire this year. I mean, we could figure something out, how we evaluate the projects, but maybe going forward, we could think of 26, 27, and our next time, and going forward, and maybe even imposing a moratorium then, just to give the public, advance notice, and then really deal with everything that staff has to deal with. So.
I kind of agree with what Bella said, and giving a little bit of notice, and things have kind of switched up a little this year, but I don't really see a really clear resolution.
When we come back on the 16th and we start going over the projects, the 25 projects, some of these may go away because of different factors, the proponent, or it doesn't apply anymore, or they want to have it redesigned or something. So we may not be looking at all 25 projects. And the other thing we have to consider is what's going to happen to the 30 projects you've already accepted in for this year. If we say, well, we're only going to take 10 new ones, what's going to happen? Excuse me, what's going to happen with those other 20? We have to know those, we need to prioritize them. If it's a safety or a fire issue, we would have to go back to those proponents to say, here's what we're doing. Would it be okay if we push our project back a year? We'll have to get permission from them to do it. Because we accepted in 30 projects before a submittal date was even given out in there. So it's a rock and a hard place that we're at. But I really think we need to do our due diligence and clean up these old guys. Not me, projects.
I would agree with a lot of the comments that have already been made. I think in terms of addressing backlog, there are different strategies that we can look at. One was previously mentioned, reviewing the current projects. There may be some that may go away. We can also focus on putting money on adding money to current projects. So the EOC was one of the projects mentioned tonight that needs additional funding. So that is an existing project. We're not adding a new project on top of it. So looking at what we can add funds to, if appropriate. And we can also look at projects that staff is already working on. So one day I gave the idea of gave the example of ADA. So that's not going to take away time from staff because it's something that they're already doing. So I think there's a couple strategies that we can look at when assessing projects. I would agree that we did vote on a deadline. So I don't think we can now say that we're not going to accept new projects. I think we do have to look at the projects that have been submitted and will be submitted. I agree with prioritizing projects that focus on safety, public health, and that could be a discussion down the line in terms of what projects would fall under that category versus others that may not. And then, like you mentioned, having that discussion with the submitter, you know, we're focusing on this year. Would it be okay if we hold that? And maybe even having another discussion at some point in the future about taking year. So I think the discussion is really great. I'm hearing a lot of really good ideas, and obviously it's going to be an ongoing discussion. One question that I did have as it relates to staff. So I believe NCIP does fund Reggie's positions. That's correct.
So yes, and part of Parker's and also any other engineer that's working on NCIP. So Reggie is also not the only engineer that works on NCIP. So there's, we have other engineers in our staff that work on different NCIP projects.
So one idea, could we put more, can we fund an additional person? Actually,
If we can find them.
I know. But still putting that out there.
We have ran many recruitments. Most of our positions are open until filled right now. So as they apply, we interview. We're just finding that even folks that are applying for some of our engineering positions have a background that's very different, not even related. So we're looking, we're very active. We're going to career fairs. We're getting interns, hoping that, you know, in 5 years when they graduate from college, they can come work for us. So we're investing in a lot of different things. We are having a lot of trouble. So right now it is really not, NCIP has a good problem, which is not a money problem. It is a staffing problem.
Thank you.
Like my comments last city, committee member 21.
We could, yeah, Adam, you could start.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate all the comments of the people in the room. You know, I do think adding, you know, we shouldn't exclude new projects. I just generally feel that, you know, we'd be missing out on new community needs that we can't necessarily address by re-scoping any existing projects that are in the queue. The second thing is that, you know, I think in terms of prioritization, that's one thing. Another element of any new or existing projects is kind of, you know, being a little bit more deliberate to make sure that the projects are closer to shovel ready than not. You know, hearing the discussion, you know, the challenges that were listed for a number of the existing projects on the books are things that I think that we can address up front and during the process of any new projects that are submitted. And as a committee, you know, potentially myself and others could consider, you know, voting up or voting down projects that are, you know, better vetted, for lack of a better word here. And lastly, you know, I think capturing the true cost of getting a project over the finish line is something that we should do. I hear that there are staffing challenges, but in the absence of you know, projects just sitting around, at least being ready and able to pay for potential positions to support managing a set of projects over the finish line, I think that would be one strategy that would be able to address projects moving forward. But obviously, it's like only whether or not we can do that, and should, depending on what that cost is. But I agree that trying to capture that cost in any new projects should be something that we consider.
Jamie Fields.
Awesome. So I just want to let you know, I drive by a $297 project every day. It's an amazing project and we really use it, and it made a difference for us. I asked, can you hear me okay?
No.
No, just one second.
Oh,
Can
man.
you mute her for a second?
Oh, yeah. Oh, is that what to do it?
Yeah, mute her. Okay, let's figure this out. It didn't happen with Adrian, right?
No,
Let's just-
that was,
Okay, let's try again.
Okay, how's this sounding?
That's much better.
All right.
all right.
I know.
Sorry.
Maybe that helps. Okay, so I was saying I drive by a $297 project every day, and it makes a difference to the neighborhood. And I asked everybody to look at the manual because there's nothing in the manual that's anything like the kind of things we're discussing. I would put to you that the process is not broken. What I've seen is that over time, the projects on the list naturally prioritize themselves, giving us more information to consider on voting night would fit right into the process and wouldn't be making a new process. Urgent needs come in all sizes, and they come up all the time. But most of all, out of all these concepts I'm throwing at you, is I have seen more than once in my time the unintended consequences of good ideas. And I would caution us all to look at the process that has been working effectively and see how we can tweak it and enhance it so that our voting is more effective. But I would be very, very concerned that we think we're going to design something new and perfect, and we'll find out later that there's bigger problems made by it.
Tammy Jennings.
I agree that with what everyone has put out there so far, I do not believe that we should stop the process this year. The residents of Monterey need to know what's happening. So we need to continue. If we decide that, we need to do something in the future, next year, future years, that's one thing. And we can let and inform the community that, we're only going to be able to do so many projects, or we're going to do it this way or that way. That's fine, but it needs to be put before the community first. They need to know what's going on. And that's all I have to say.
Luz Adams. Luz?
Yes, I agree with all the comments about prioritize and also maybe change the process and concentrate on the all projects, because it's not right that they are sitting there, not for lack of effort, but for other reasons. So we need to resolve the issue of the old projects and maybe be cautious about the new ones without forgetting them. Thank you.
That's the last online comment.
Okay, well, the comment I want to make is this violates the process that NCIP has existed on since its existence. Be looking for public comments on ideas, public input on what the city needs. Putting a limitation or consideration of, are we going to take big projects, or I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do that. highlights that process which this was originally set up for. I think what we have to look at is on the back end, or when we get towards voting, what helps us with our considerations. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just thinking out loud, I think we need an SCF, right? A staff complexity index. When they see a project and they see that's a 200, that's a too hard to do. Or they see a project that's easy breezy, we already got it on the board, that's a 1. Or something like that that would help us with the voting when we look at projects. Maybe that's something we can add to the process, but to rethink how NCIP has worked since its inception, I think is wrong, and I think that violates the public input that we're looking for in this process. That's my comment.
So if there are no other comments from the committee, then this discussion can just close, and we can, I think at this point, we move on to committee comments.
I'll go around the room. Any comments? Any comments? Closing comments?
If anybody's saying anything, I can't hear.
We're talking about moving on to closing comments, and we're going around the room internally, and then we'll go to comments from outside. So, Amy.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the, I guess I don't feel like we were talking about changing the process.
You speaking to the microphone.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking of the prior discussion of, it's so much changing the process is as, taking a different consideration on the voting process and how we consider it. And I like that term about the staff complexity index. I think that's a very good way to frame it. I look forward to having more discussions about that. And that's all I had to say.
Agreed, shouldn't change the process. However, I'm a data engineer, I'm a data scientist, so think of quantitatively, like how do we approach this from my kind of perspective, and that is simply that we do re-examine our prioritization metrics perhaps, and what you discussed, and I wrote down, safety index, other, just how do we measure what is prioritized? We don't have a numbers problem necessarily. We shouldn't close the spigot. We'll have plenty of projects come in. It's just a matter of how many or how we prioritize them, and then how many we choose to send on based on the workload. I do understand this year, because of the schedule shift, there's a little bit of make good time. Hopefully staff is able to knock a couple extras off over this time, this extra few months, but that's not going to fix the problem. Nor I do think it's realistic that we're going to fix this problem in a year or two, but if we're making progress, we have a good plan to move forward, and I hope that's the goal.
I'm scared.
If not, just project very loudly without the microphone.
It's on, so we're okay. I agree with the comments that Amy and Scott both said. I don't think anyone is looking to necessarily change the process, but maybe how we go about evaluating the projects and the number that we send forward to city council for funding. So it's more of a tweaking of the existing process or reinterpretation. I really like Dennis's idea about the staff index. That would give us a good indication of what staff feels they can handle, or how much time a certain project is going to take, or other materials or resources that will be going into each project. Things like one of the commenter said earlier was smaller project could take just as much time and effort as a larger project. The difference is maybe the dollar amount, but that doesn't account for staff time, and that's where our issue is our staff resources. So I look forward to more conversations. I think a lot of good ideas are floating out there tonight.
You know, and last year before voting, there was kind of a partial SCI owned by staff, which, you know, they gave their opinions, and I found that very helpful. So I think if we do something along those lines this year, that would be even more helpful.
I don't really have anything additional to add. I think it's been a great comment. I think the one thing that I am seeing on the alternate side, for example, and observant side, is the consideration on projects and the process with staff. That's the way you want to compliment us on our sensitivity to what we ask the staff to do. Because in hearing everything, wow, they have really got a lot on their plate and they're doing this a lot. And just opening up that communication. Very good.
I don't have any.
I think we'll know more after we get information coming into your office in March. And we'll even know even more in April when we meet again. Because like we've said, we may have some of the old projects gone. We'll have looked at the new projects and see what kind we get. Looking for engineers, you might try the military that have retired in this area that are engineers, so they're already, and they, you know, want maybe work 3 days a week or something. It's a start to get someone in, and so it's another resource pool that you can use. But I think we've made some good strides. It's hard taking getting the old stuff and the new stuff together, and how do you mesh them, and where's the priorities? But I think things will be clearer. We'll have some guidelines and stuff after we get more information from these seasoned projects and which direction we're going to go.
I also want to say thank you to staff for the presentations today and helping us understand what some of the challenges are and delays in the projects getting done. I think we all understand how hard you guys work, and I don't want you guys to come away from this meeting thinking that we don't think we work hard. We do. So we really appreciate everything you guys do. And I do want to apologize to the committee for having to step out a few times and say thank you to Dennis for running the meeting today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, my only comments are, let's see, we're gonna still have $6 million or so per year coming in. So I think just stalling things isn't gonna help, because then the money will just pile up again until the next fiscal crisis and the city takes us again. So we do need to figure out a process, and I like the idea of having some kind of not only a money value estimate put on projects, but also a Reggie hour, or Reggie time number, you know, effort, so that let's say with, you know, handicap or whatever access that can, you know, there can be a big fat zero in that column, and that would be really helpful for, I think, during voting night. So I think something could be really well worked out. The other thing is, I think we hear a lot from, because if we do more of these larger projects and do start doing a little less of the work intensive projects, it might be good to get a presentation too early on, maybe from Andrea or somebody, about what the real needs are in the citywide, so we can get a better idea of how, you know, we're all in a city, we're all working. Yes, we're NIP rather than CIP, but still we're gonna help out with some of these larger projects. It'd be good to get a good overview of what these bigger project needs that the city has are, and kind of their relative importance and timeliness that we need to get done and things like that. So we can get a staff presentation like something like that earlier on in the year, we can start thinking about that a little bit. Anyway, okay, that's it.
Ditto to Hans's comments, good discussion. Look forward to moving some of these projects forward.
Online, we'll go with Tammy Jennings.
Really don't have much to say. I agree with how we're going. I definitely think knowing how much time, effort, resources that it will take you to do a project will influence the voting night and how we do vote. So I think that's good. That's all I have to say.
Luz, Adam,
I don't have any more comments. I agree with all the good ideas. Thank you.
Jamie Fields.
Let me check and see if can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Right on. So this is closing comments and not comments on the previous agenda item. So I would put two things in for our thoughts. Sometimes doing little things like installing speed signs might be something that we can hire a project manager to do that isn't an engineer. So that may help to broaden the scope. We might just need somebody who's good at getting things done, but doesn't have an engineering degree. And that would be one thing to think about. And then the other thing is we used to manage our policy manual ourselves. And a few years back, it got completely rewritten and the committee kind of put its hands off of it. But what I'm noticing is we had a lot of really good information in the old manual before it was rewritten. We might want to think about putting together a manual committee like we used to do to look at that old one and see what we can bring forward, because I think the new one's a little lacking in some of the areas that really help, especially when folks are new. So just something to think about.
Okay, and Adam Purdy.
No, I appreciate the discussion and feel good about the direction that the committee's headed. Hope everyone has a nice evening. Thank you.
That's the last online.
Just, can you hear me?
Oh, Parker turned it down.
Parker, turn this off. It's
Okay, it's almost 9. Okay, I'll speak up. So about 2 years ago. Okay, so about 2 years ago, we did get a new classification that's called project manager. And we're trying to attract exactly those folks that have project management experience but may not have an engineering degree. And then we even added a senior project manager classification so that we can have 2 different categories of project managers that don't necessarily have to be engineers. We're having trouble recruiting there as well. No, it's good ideas.
Is it on? No, it's not. Oh, Gary's right. Okay. I know where, oh, it is on. Okay. Have one staff comment or one comment for the committee. I want to thank everybody for stepping up to help multiplex the staff by doing the due diligence that we need to do to get the projects out. I appreciate the thought everybody steps up to do that. Particularly like on that project with the bridge overpass where they went and did the homework to make it a positive project. That's what we need to do with the rest of the projects and all the projects that we have that come up that we want to support next year. So I appreciate everybody stepping up to do that. That being the case, the next meeting will be special meeting April 16th, the day after taxes are due.
Don't forget your homework.
Can't hear.
Adjourned.
All right. Adjourn the meeting.